Welcome to Viewpoint. I'm your host, Marguerite Johnson, and again we are videotaping at Skyline Place with some of the residents here. And there is a fabulous group of people here that I hope to continue this view of the past and interview several of the people who are over 90 years old, 80, and all of these wonderful ages that have seen a lot of life. So we're going to start on that, and then Diane Doddridge in the next show is going to talk about some community event. So there will be at least 2 shows, and I might even do more and get some playback of more programs because I'm enjoying it so much. And today I'd like to introduce Wilma Andrews, who is 98.
I'll be 99 June the 17th.
June the 17th.
I'll be
and
99.
She has some interesting stories to tell. So we're going to start. Where were you born, Wilma?
I was born in Sacramento, California,
Yeah.
June the 17th, 1912.
19. Boy, that's when my mother got married.
Is it really?
Yes, it is. So anyway, and that was in Sacramento. So where did you go to school? In Sacramento?
Yes, I went to William Land in the younger years, in Newton Booth, and I graduated from Sacramento High School.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what did you do? Did you work or?
That was during this Great Depression that we've all heard so much about, and I lived through. I was very fortunate. My whole family worked for the Pacific Telephone and Telegraph Company. So when I graduated, a month later, I went to work at the telephone company as a telephone operator when they used to say number please.
And you plugged in? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I did that for 5 years.
Uh-huh.
And my first paycheck, my first salary was $13 a week.
Wow.
So that's how I got started.
Yep. And so then you married, or what came next in your life?
No, what I liked variety. So I usually have a different boyfriend about every 3 or 4 months.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought that was happening just nowadays.
And I would, have fun and all that stuff. I was never engaged or serious about anybody. And then one night after work, one of the girls at work said, we worked 2 to 11 p.m. shift. She said, well, why don't you come by my house, my apartment, after work, and my boyfriend's coming over, and he'll give you a ride home. So I said, well, that sounds great. Because I lived far from the telephone company, I had to take the streetcar, go to the end of the line and transfer, and then take a bus. So I went over there, and we waited, and finally he came, and he had a friend with him. And his friend, I looked at his friend and I thought, oh boy. So his name was Leonard Bowden. So we met. And that's how we got started. And then we started going together. And I was known at the telephone company as being kind of fickle.
Oh.
And so after 3 months, we eloped to Reno, Nevada, and we got married. Well, but I was smart enough to know that I better do something to protect myself from my father's anger when I got home. So I called his sister, whose name was Blanche, Aunt Blanche, from Roseville or someplace. And I said, Aunt Blanche, I'm on my way to Reno and I'm going to marry Leonard Bowden. Will you help me with my father? She said, oh, I'm glad you called me. So okay, so we got married. By this time it was really late. And I'll never forget this. The minister said, by the way, he was a Baptist minister and his name was Brewster Adams.
In Tahoe?
No,
In
Reno.
Reno?
because I told the man where we got the license,
Yeah.
I do not want to be married by a justice of the peace. I want to be married by a minister. So the man said, the minister said, I now pronounce you man and wife. The fee is $5, please.
Really religious service. Now listen, before we go any further on this though, you told me something about when you were still in high school or just out of high school, that you helped people go out in boats and get the rum in and... Yeah.
No, that was, yeah, when I was first started work.
Yeah.
When I first started work, it was Prohibition. And I did something that was not very nice to do, but I knew where every speakeasy in Sacramento was, because I really liked to have a little drink. And so at that time I knew all of the bootleggers. And by the way, they were Italian. They were always Italian. So I had this one boyfriend that, they're not serious boyfriends, just people that date.
Yes.
Anyway, he had a speedboat on the Sacramento River. And he would pile it up with a lot of liquor. And then we would get in this speedboat and go up as far as Ileton and stuff, delivering booze to all the other bootleggers.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Speakeasies.
Yes.
And it never entered my mind that we would get caught.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we did not get
They're
caught.
going to come after you, yeah. Okay, now we've got you married, and then what did your husband do, and what did you do? Did you quit work?
I quit work because that was a long time ago, and there were quite a few men, and my father was that way too. Their pride didn't want their wife to
Taking
work.
care, yes.
And now where am I?
Yes, you were telling about your marriage and how he...
Right. So
You quit.
and Leonard didn't want me to work either, so I had to quit. And I really liked being an operator. So I said, well, I have to give notice. I'm not going to just walk out on them. I'm going to give two weeks notice. So I went to the chief operator, and I told her, I said, Grace, I have to quit. I said, I got married and my husband insists that I quit work. And I don't want to quit. And she said, Wilma, be proud that you're married to a man that wants to support you.
That's right.
And I'm very happy for you that I'll miss you because you're a good operator, but I'm happy that you're going to get to quit.
Good.
So I quit, and I gave 2 weeks notice. And then I was a housewife.
So what did your husband do then? What was he
He
working
worked
at?
for a company that has been defunct quite a few years. The name of it is the Pacific Fruit and Produce Company, and their headquarters were in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And they had so-called sheds where they shipped out produce to other states back east. And that's what he did, and he was a buyer. And so he went out into the field. And they had what they called a buyer's knife. It was a long knife with a long thin blade that they would cut the fruit and vegetables open with to test it. So that's what he did.
And you called yourself something, a tramp, fruit tramp?
Oh, the people, I didn't, but people would make derogatory remarks about us. And I remember we would get transferred, quite often. So we would have to find an apartment. And they would say to us, I don't rent to fruit tramps.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. And so one time my friend Ann went with me, and we were both looking, and she said, my husband is not a fruit tramp. He is a traveling agriculturist. So that made us feel a lot better, because we were not, they really thought that we were all just a bunch of tramps,
Yeah.
which we were not.
Yes.
That's what, I'll never forget that.
Yeah. So where did you live and what places?
Well, let's see, we'd be in Sherlock. Then we would get sent to Lodi because they grew a lot of cherries there.
Yes.
Then they would send us to Stockton. And then they would send us to Fresno because Fresno had a lot of grapes. Then Bakersfield. Then in the wintertime down to El Centro, California,
Ah.
because that place had the kind of weather where the things were always growing.
Yeah.
Then, as time went by, we were transferred to Arizona, Yuma, Arizona, and then we'd only stay about 3 months. And then we'd go back to Sacramento. That time that was the headquarters. But that was on the West Coast.
Yeah.
But the main one was.
Right.
And then we went to Arizona. Then.
So you covered sort of the West and Midwest.
And then they dared to send us to Grand Junction, Colorado.
Oh, that's a beautiful area though.
Very nice. And then to where I really liked was Denver, Colorado. And I was so foolish as to think, well, first of all, I'll back up. After we had been married 5 years, we had our first child, which was a girl.
Yeah.
And so then I said to Leonard, we can't be moving around so much. It isn't good for her. He said, well, we have to go wherever the job goes. So anyway, we were still transferred quite a bit when Betty was young. Then we had a son, and he was born during the potato deal, which was in Nampa, Idaho.
Yeah.
So anyway, then after, let's see, okay, then he wasn't very old. He was, no, he wasn't very old. That was in the olden days, Nampa, Idaho. 10 days in the hospital was $50, and the doctor bill was $50. Well, anyway, it was the next day, and my husband came in and he said, Wilma, I hate to tell you this, but as soon as you can get up, we've been transferred back to California.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, we're going to have to go on because
Okay.
I want to know about your later years when you did some interesting things as a house mother.
Oh, yeah, okay. Anyway, so then, well, I had a really nice life, and then when I was 57 years old when my husband died. Mm-hmm. And in all of those years, I had never worked out. And the only thing I had ever done in my whole life was be a telephone operator. Well, anyway, but I didn't have that much money.
Oh.
So I needed some income. And I didn't know what I was going to do, because I didn't know how to do anything, type or anything like that. So we lived next door, we lived in Selma, California when he passed away. Had a wonderful neighbor, and Mr. Axford was his name, and he was the superintendent of schools in Selma, California. Mm-hmm.